What's going on, everyone? So, there's been a lot of talk about Trey Murphy III potentially being traded. Brett Siegel even recently talked about kind of the package that the New Orleans Pelicans would be looking for in a trade for Trey Murphy. Pelicans are kind of in this weird spot, right? Where it's like, how good are they going to be? Are they going to completely tear it down? You know, they're kind of making moves, making changes. There was a lot of talks early on this offseason about Herb Jones potentially being traded, and then he got a new extension. Now, that could just be to make sure he's locked up, and then once he is trade eligible, maybe they start to shop him again. We'll see. Time will tell. I always love Herb Jones. But Trey Murphy, guy that is young, just turned 25. He won't be 26 until the Lakers win the NBA championship, right? So he's a young asset, young player that could fit in for any. I mean, you're talking about one of the premier kind of young 3-and-D wings that can hit shots, create for himself, create a little bit for others, play defense, play either forward spot, defend the best player on the other team, right? A guy that can play on ball, play off ball, very versatile. Right? Recent reports came out that the Golden State Warriors have pushed heavily and are trying to, see if they can maybe do a Kuminga type of sign and trade for him to kind of get a guy that, which, I mean, if I were the Warriors, I'd probably try to do something like that too. But get a Trey Murphy, and then as well as the San Antonio Spurs were a team on that report from Jake Fisher that basically dove into Trey Murphy and the teams that are active and trying to trade for him. But Brett Siegel recently talked about what the New Orleans Pelicans would be looking for. Now, he did say that him getting traded is very unlikely, but if you were to look to trade for Trey Murphy, you'd be looking at multiple first-round picks plus a young player, a young proven player is what he said. So, what's a young proven player? Is it somebody that's in their mid-20s? Is it somebody that's like 22? That, what is their kind of thought process on that? And how many multiple firsts? Do they want 3 or 4 firsts, or they want like 2 firsts, right? Just using the Warriors as an example, could the Warriors get, say, Trey Murphy for Jonathan Kuminga and 2 firsts, right? Or is it 1 first? Or is it, 4 first, right? Do they look at Trey? Because Trey Murphy is an excellent player, but he's not like a superstar, right? Like, teams aren't going to pony up 4 or 5 first-round picks for Trey Murphy plus a bunch of young talent, right? They're not getting like a Giannis package for Trey Murphy, but I could see a young player in like maybe a first or, 2 like protected firsts or something like that where, hey, this is a guy that is young, 3-and-D wing that is coming off an excellent season. Now, part of that, right, his stats being as great as they were was because like the entire roster was basically decimated by injuries last year. Trey Murphy had large stretches of games where he was basically the only guy out there, right? So he had to create a lot for himself, create a lot for others, right? He was kind of put in this position to where he was basically the guy out there. And that's why he had a season where he averaged 21 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists on 45% from the floor. But he is a great, like, 3-point shooter defender. Like, I don't want to undersell him in the same kind of breath either. But is he now all of a sudden a 21-point-a-game guy? Probably not. Right, this season he'll probably be back to like that 15 to maybe 17 range. Right? Maybe they kind of give him a little more expanded role. So, but maybe he is. Right? If he's kind of one of the main options for the Pelicans, he could be that. But I think on a team like the Warriors, a team like the Lakers, I think he's probably in that 15-point-a-game range. I think he's a guy that, slots into either forward spot. You're looking for him to be an on-ball, off-ball guy, a guy that can self-create at times, guy that play for others. Like, think of like Andrew Wiggins, like what you'd be looking for with Andrew Wiggins. Right, a guy that play off ball, catch, shoot 3, defend the best player on the other team, defend multiple positions, but also be a guy that, hey, here's the basketball, go get a bucket, right? And Trey Murphy, I think, is a guy that can do that. Yeah, give me the rock, I'll go get a bucket, right? So the question becomes, if you're the Lakers, right, what would you have to give up in order to land a Trey Murphy, right? So looking at his contract, because you got to keep in mind, he just signed a new deal, and I mean, just getting into his new deal. He's making $25 million this year, $27 million next, $29 million, and then $31 million. Now, his contract, I think, is actually very good value for as young as he is and as talented as he is. However, the Lakers don't want to hold on to cap space, right? Lakers want to move off of cap space for a Giannis or Jokic or whatever. If they have a chance to land a Trey Murphy, and they don't do it for the maybe of Giannis and Jokic, I would lose my mind. In order to land Trey Murphy, I would give up whatever you want, not name Jokic, or not, sorry, not, got Jokic and Giannis on the brain, not name Luka and LeBron, right? You want Austin Reeves? Here you go. Right? I like Austin Reeves. I like Austin Reeves a lot. Trey Murphy, youth, his size, his shooting, his off-ball capabilities, his defense, I just think he'd be a much better fit. If you think Austin Reeves is better than Trey Murphy, that's awesome. That's great. But better doesn't mean better fit or what's best for the Lakers. Trey Murphy would be a better option for the Lakers, particularly right now. Because, I mean, you could, if you wanted to, literally just throw in a Marcus Smart at the 2 and then Trey Murphy at the 3, and that could be your starting unit, right? Now, what would you have to do beyond Austin Reeves? I mean, the question is again, it doesn't matter what I think, it doesn't matter what you think. You could think Austin Reeves is the third, top 5 player in all of basketball. What do the Pelicans view him as, right? And what do the Lakers view him as? Do the Pelicans look at Austin Reeves as like a real foundation piece? Would the Pelicans even necessarily want an Austin Reeves because they got all these young guards and stuff, and they're trying to kind of work things out and kind of hitting the reset button here a little bit, and maybe the Lakers would have to flip Austin Reeves into something else for them, right? So maybe it's a 3-team trade where Austin Reeves is going elsewhere, players and assets are going to the Pelicans. Right? Maybe you could do something like that. Maybe you could find a team if the Pelicans don't really value Austin Reeves. Maybe you could find a team that does, and then now make that kind of pivot and change into a Trey Murphy. Like that could be something, but you'd also have to give up more salary because again, Austin Reeves, you'd still need to clear another basically 12, 13 million just to clear that. So are you doing, say, like, would you do like a Rui and an Austin Reeves for Trey Murphy? Like, I would. Personally, I would. Some people might not. So, and you could argue Trey Murphy is not going to give you the production of Austin Reeves and a Rui all in one. But again, it's more of like that long-term approach, what you fix and solve right now. You'd still have depth. You'd still have arguably a better starting unit. Because like I said, you could add Marcus Smart into the starting unit or even go big with a Jared Vanderbilt and have a Trey Murphy over at the 3. So like literally you go Luka, Marcus Smart, or Jared Vanderbilt, Trey Murphy, LeBron James, and DeAndre. I mean, that's great. Like, yes, it would suck to lose, but Lakers are probably going to lose Rui regardless this offseason, right? He's also younger, and, he does a lot of same things, but he's also better defensively, right? And then beyond that, right, Austin Reeves, you're going to have to pay him $30+ million, and Trey Murphy's making less. So you'd actually save money. Even the most Trey Murphy will make during his contract is $31 million. Austin Reeves' contract probably will start, his new contract probably start more than that. It'll probably start at $32.5 million or whatever, depending on what he signs for, right? So Trey, you'd save money, and especially as the cap increases, like those little margins are the difference between you being, a second apron team or, staying under the apron, right? And when LeBron leaves and departs, you could just slide Trey Murphy over to the 4 spot. You got athleticism, you got shooting, you got defense, right? He also could be a guy that could be very beneficial to like an Adu Thero because they're very, comparable, right? Like, I look at Trey Murphy. He's one of those guys that I think is justifiable to sell the farm for. That's not like a star, right? Obviously, if you get Giannis or whatever, but you got to think like Lakers are limited in assets. Lakers don't have a ton of assets. And the question is like, what do the Pelicans want? Like, what are the Pelicans looking for as far as that? Like, young player and multiple first, right? Do they value Austin Reeves as like the equivalent of a young player plus a first, right? Like, or like I mentioned, the Lakers have to go and turn Austin Reeves into that, right? Maybe you find a team, the Orlando Magic, where you can get a young guy or two and maybe a couple. Maybe you can get like an Anthony Black and a 2 firsts or something like that, and be like, hey, here's a young player, a multiple first. Throw in a Rui Hachimura, maybe throw in like a Dalton Connect, and then boom, now you got Trey Murphy. Maybe you can even get another piece or two. I don't know. Like there's like I said, there's options, there's flexibility there for what you could potentially look to do. Right? Kind of work in a 3-team trade, turn Austin Reeves into assets. Because I don't think you'd be able to get a Trey Murphy without trading in Austin Reeves, right? Like Rui and one first, I don't think is going to be enough. Rui, Dalton Connect, and one first, I don't think is going to be enough. You'd still have to add in a Maxi Kleber or Gabe Vincent or something like that, right? Which, I wouldn't care. But I just think realistically speaking, if you were to look to trade for a Trey Murphy, you're probably giving up Austin Reeves, right? Which, again, I would do. I'm not against trading Austin Reeves at all, but like I've always said, like, it has to make sense. You don't want to just trade Austin Reeves, just trade Austin Reeves, right? Like, there's usually one extreme or another with Austin Reeves. Either people think he's like the second coming of Michael Jordan, or people think he's an absolute bum that shouldn't even be in the league. I don't think it's either. I think he's a very good basketball player I don't think he's the superstar people make him out to be, but I think he is a very good basketball player. Right? I don't think you can just give him away just to give him away. I don't think you can just trade him away just to trade him away. But if you can get somebody like a Trey Murphy that is, again, another very good basketball player who also happens to be exactly what this team needs for now and the future, you do that. Right? Even if you have to give up a little more, and even if it is an overpay. I've talked about this numerous times. I don't mind when teams overpay for guys if it makes sense and is justified. Your best case scenario is to end up landing a guy like Trey Murphy at some point. Right? Now imagine if you already got that guy, and then you also have an Adou there. I mean, literally your two wings of the future could be Adou Thero and Trey Murphy. Right? You could have two 6'8", athletic, versatile, or I guess a 6'9", 6'8", 6'9", and a 6'7", 6'8", athletic, versatile, defensive wings alongside Luka Doncic and DeAndre Ayton. It's exactly what you need, right? Now you just solve your long-term two spot, right? And maybe it's Bronny James with his defense and athleticism. If he can develop a legit three-point shot, right? Maybe he's that answer long-term. If not, you'll find somebody else. Like, I'm not worried about it. And then also, if a Giannis or somebody like that becomes available, right? Trey Murphy's a guy that teams would want, right? Like, Trey Murphy's a guy that teams would desire. Right? A team like a Milwaukee Bucks might be like, yeah, hey, we want Trey Murphy. So now you're working out a trade to go land a Giannis, or you're working out a trade to go land a Nikola Jokic. Look, if you can get Trey Murphy without having to trade Austin Reeves, then beautiful. If you could do Rui Hachimura, Gabe Vincent, Dalton Connect, a first, and 4 pick swaps, do it. Right? Like, if whatever you can do, if you can keep Austin Reeves and make it happen, keep Austin Reeves and make it happen. I just think realistically speaking, you're not going to be able to. I think you would have to trade Austin Reeves in that trade. But let's go over the stats real quick, because I think that that's important too. Right? So last season, in 53 games played, 51 games started, 35 minutes per game. He averaged 16 field goal attempts per game, which is the most of his career. The previous high was 11. 45.4% from the field. From three-point range, shot 36.1% from three-point range on 8.3 attempts, which is the most attempts of his career. Now, he is a career 38.3%. And the 3 previous years, he was 38% on 8 attempts. He was almost 41% on 6.3 attempts, and then was 38.2% on 3 attempts. So again, why did he drop to 36%? Couple reasons. One, he had to self-create a lot more. He was the primary scoring option, like I mentioned earlier, on many a nights. And on top of that, he didn't have like a playmaker or anything like that to really set him up properly. I think he gets back bare minimum to the 38% range alongside Luka and LeBron. Also, 36% isn't bad for everything else he does, right? You're talking around league average. So even in his worst shooting year was league average, right? 2-point range. 7.6 attempts, shot 55.6%, EFG of 54.8%, free throw shooting. On 4.3 attempts, 88.7%. So a good free throw shooter. Grabbed 5 rebounds, 3.5 assists, a steal, almost a full block, 0.7 blocks, and 21.2 points per game. So a guy that really can give you just, again, multiple things out there on the basketball court. He can defend, he can shoot, he can play on ball, he can play off ball, he can self-create, he's one of those guys that if I'm the Lakers and I can realistically trade for him, I think the Lakers realistically trade for him. Kind of just wanted to talk about him because there's been a lot of talks about him being potentially available and teams inquiring about him. And there were reports earlier in the offseason that the Pelicans were open to trading Herb Jones as well as Trey Murphy, but they want a pretty sizable. They're not just going to give them away. You got to actually give up a pretty sizable package. But if the Lakers could get Trey Murphy, I mean, in a perfect world, you get both Trey Murphy and Herb Jones. Lakers are set. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. I pass the question to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me out. It's me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one.